can
When you're
start.
ready, you can switch on, yeah. Did you turn on both mics, yeah?
Yeah. Check.
We're good. Can start. Alhamdulillah. نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So inshallah ta'ala we'll be continuing discussing the book Mukhtasar Sahih Bukhari by Zabidi rahimahullah, and we're still discussing Kitab al-Salat and the different hadith that have been mentioned regarding matters pertaining to Salat. So we're still discussing discussing matters relating to matters regarding regarding concerning what is allowed within the Salat, regarding what one is allowed to pray on. So the author mentioned some hadith regarding those matters. So in the last session that we had, we discussed concerning as-salat al-hasir. That's where we had ended. Salat al-hasir. Qari.
نعم أي
We discussed the
على
hadith, or
الفراش على الفراش نعم صلاة على الفراش.
that's the one to come next.
Now I read that one as well.
Okay. So the author here, rahimahullah, or what is mentioned here, that you have mentioned regarding of those things that is permissible, regarding things that is allowed for one to pray upon, where you have a hadith that I've mentioned regarding that the Prophet ﷺ, that he prayed upon hasir. The ulama discussed concerning hasir. That's like more of a full length type of we'll call it today like a prayer mat. So something, so said then it will come in the form of something that is like a mat, but that mat would have been made from straw. So like a straw mat is allowed for a person to pray upon this, but with hasir it will be one which are full length. Then so that is allowed. And also they mentioned that even if it's of a small length or a smaller size, half size, then also it's allowed for the person to pray on. With a person, the smaller size would be where you have enough space on that sujada, that prayer mat, that the person mainly aims to put his forehead, his head, and his hands on that. So that also is something which allowed. Then I mentioned after then that of those things that's allowed, that salat al-farash, where also it's allowed regarding the person praying on what we call carpet. So the person praying on on carpet, also there's something which is allowed. So he mentioned these hadith, and these hadith is clarified regarding that is allowed for the person that at times he can pray not directly on the floor or the ground, but if there's something between him and the floor or the ground, then also his salat is still valid, and his salat is still valid, as in these cases that the Prophet Islam he prayed on these things. So we discussed also before regarding where the Prophet Islam salat al-firash, where he was praying on something, but in that case also his wife was present. His wife Aisha radiallahu anha, she was present, and he used her somewhat as a form of sutra, where they mentioned that she was just there still, that in that case that a person who may be used as a sutra or in front of the person, if the person is still, then with the person have their full body or a portion of their body in front of you, then the person's salat, it is valid. And but they distinguish between the case of the person said murur, where the person now he walks in front of you on your salat. So the person was to walk between you and your sutra while you're in salat, then that can either the person as a male, that the person that person is to be stopped. That person is to be stopped, and if the person still insists, then that person is said to be a shaitan. Just as I said before, as just a general fa'idah, regarding if a person as a sutra and someone may have passed between you and your sutra, then you find that one at a time the person who, if the person has completely passed, then he has gone. So it's not for the person to bring him back or try to stop him. Then he'll be doing it twice. Now, so the person have gone by, passed in front of you, then a person have passed, then that have occurred, so the person is to be left, and if anything the person is cautioned after, but not during the salat, the person tried to stop them for them to go back, then that's to be left, and that's not to be done. And also the same person, if you step in front of a person and you have crossed them, then there's no need also for you to come back in trying to correct it, because they already passed. So those are the things to be mindful of. That were mentioned regarding concerning, as for the case of a female, then you have a discussion between the ulama regarding if a female was to murur, was to walk in front of the person while they're in salat. And he discussed that female is an adult female. Adult female meaning she's above the age of puberty. So she's above the age of puberty, whether she's in her cycle or not in her cycle. If she was to go by a person in salat, is that person's salat valid or not? A discussion between the ulama. Jumhur of the ulama order the person's salat is still valid, but of the ulama, amongst them the Hanabila, and that the person that salat is invalid, that the person's salat is invalid. Then so that's concerning those hadith that we have discussed. But the shahid from the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ is that he was praying regarding on a farash, like on a bed or something, where there was something in between him and the floor, in between him and the floor. As for praying and the person now having they said something that a person would primarily, specifically prostrate on, wearing his forehead after touch that thing, where the person have an object where it is placed on the ground, and the person have to prostrate upon this, then that is something which is foreign to Islam. Then that is something which is foreign to Islam, and that has become one of the sign, a symbol of those people who are said to be Ar-Rafida Ashia. So regarding concern, where they believe that this thing that they pray upon, they say to be a piece of clay or part of the earth, that they say is from Karbala, and they have their own story and history regarding that. But overall, as for the Prophet and the Sahaba, then that practice was not known amongst them. So they mentioned regarding concerning that, and also of the next matter regarding that the Prophet ﷺ praying towards his wife while she was somewhat sleeping. Then also they mentioned that at times that some touching would take place regarding him and her. So it shows also regarding a discussion between the ulama that touching a female, directly touching a female, that they've discussed, does this nullify the person's wudu? So by touching a female, or a female touching a male, does this nullify the person's wudu? So in this case, it shows that no, this does not occur. So touching a female, then this does not invalidate the person's al-wudu, as in this case, that there was some exchange or touching that occurred between the Prophet ﷺ and his wife. So those are those things that I will mention regarding concerning that we had ended regarding from the hadith also, that the ulama have extracted, that it shows regarding istihbab, that is something which is preferred or encouraged regarding salat al-qiyam. So salat al-qiyam is something which is mustahab, and also it's a nafila. So it's of those salat we said to be that is not a compulsory salah, but rather is a salat which is nafila, a voluntary salat. And as we had mentioned that of the mashaykh who have explained regarding of the night prayer, that for a person of a routine regarding night prayer, and especially regarding al-witr, praying salat al-witr, that is like 4 stages or 4 ways. So 4 stages. So the first stage, that a person in ensuring that he prays witr, and it being the last salat of the day, and to be discussed further or later, that that the person soon after he prays salatul isha, and pray is ar-ratiba with salatul isha, then he prays witr. So when it be of 3 or whatever amount, so soon after, right after the person praises salatul isha, and prays is ratiba that attached with it, then he prays salatul witr immediately. So as then the next stage, and a person after I've built that routine and have that in place, then the next stage is for the person regarding salatul witr to ensure that it is prayed, even though it is something which is mustahab, not wajib, that the person that the next stage that the person will give some time, so the person after praying salatul isha, but he'll try to ensure that he prays salatul witr before he goes to sleep. So the person might pray salatul isha, like for us today we pray around 7:30, you'll pray salatul isha, then pray one, then before he goes, the person might go back home, relax, have dinner, supper, and whatever. Then before the person go to sleep, then the person will pray salat al-witr. So he'll complete the salat al-witr before going to sleep. So the first stage is right after salatul isha. The next stage is before the person before he goes to sleep. Then the next stage regarding of praying of witr, and then the person then he would go to sleep if he's able, and after he develop that routine, then the person will go to sleep for a while, then get up and then pray. So the person then he will pray. So he would pray salatul isha, then he would sleep, then he will wake in the middle of the night after sleeping, and he will pray salat. They mentioned salat al-witr. Then the person, and better yet, in the last third of the night. But so the last third of the night, and after, so he will do that routine, and he will play the last third, and he will just continue on until Salatul Fajr. Then the next stage is that a person would go to sleep, and this is, I haven't yet prayed Salatul Witr, then wake up, pray, and then go. Then a person will get up, go back to sleep. So the next stage, another way, so the person will get up, and then get up, prays, then go back to sleep, and then get up and pray Salatul Fajr. So those are the 4 different ways regarding the Prophet Islam, how he would, regarding Salatul Witr, our ulama have mentioned as the person kind of somewhat ensure that he prays Salatul Witr, and also start to develop a routine regarding Sayatul Qiyam. So it won't come immediate. So the person develop that system, or put that system in place. So those are what can be mentioned regarding the fawahid from this particular those hadith that have been mentioned. Aywa.
Bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, al-mu'allif rahimahullah. Chapter 18, to prostrate on the garment in the scorching heat. Hadith number 253, narrated by Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu. We used to offer salah with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and some of us used to place the ends of their clothes at the place of prostration because of the scorching heat. Chapter 19.
That's the hadith. Hey.
No.
And there's another hadith.
No.
Hey, طيب. So the next hadith he mentioned regarding concerning as-sujud ala thawb fi shiddat al-har. So of those things that he mentioned, that Imam Bukhari, that had been mentioned regarding the chapter topic regarding as-sujud, that performing as-sujud upon one garment, a part or of performing sujud upon one's own garment or on something on the floor. So again, discussing regarding that before, it is something which generally can be done where a person will pray upon something other than the pray upon something. Then they mentioned regarding concerning also other cases where even more of something which is that is more encouraged to be done, and more also serve as a maslahah. So this maslahah, there's a benefit where a person, because of the heat, especially said during this time, that in Arabia, that they will, and also in odd places, that a person finds that it is very hot, or you might find a person maybe in a situation is very cold, to prostrate directly on the floor. Then the person, that is allowed for the person to place something on the floor and for the person to prostrate upon this because of either of the heat or because of the cold, then it is something which is allowed. So this hadith, even though it discussed concerning shiddat al-har, that it discussed mainly regarding matter that relates to the heat, but also it can be applied regarding cases where the person also, it may be very cold and the person find it difficult for them to prostrate directly upon the floor. So from that he mentioned the Prophet that they will that this was done due to that the reason concerning that mentioned min shiddatil al-har, due to the weather. So it shows regarding concerning the permissibility again of the person prostrating on a portion of his clothing, so extension of his clothing, that he will pray upon this. Also they mentioned from the hadith, it shows regarding that can you salli Nabi Islam, that regarding concerning which is they mention here concerning that salat during the midday or the salat of dhuhr and the likes. So regarding concerning when it is very very hot, that also with this that taqdeem al-dhuhr. So if the time is very hot, then dhuhr can come forward, so people can pray and not pray in the when it is more when it is more severe in the weather condition. And also the same thing applies to also, we said, with the heat and also with the cold. The same thing applies with the heat and the cold. Then also it shows regarding that the asl regarding concerning a sujood, where the person make sujood with all of those limbs, that's preferable that the person do so directly under the floor. But if it is needed, or there's circumstance the person need to prostrate up over something, then also this is something which is allowed. It is something which is allowed. And also it shows that regarding concerning the movement of the garment to put it on the floor, that it involves some form of movements. So the person will be doing some additional acts outside the normal acts of salat, but because of the circumstance and the reason, that is something which is allowed, and by this the person's salat is not invalid. So as we had mentioned previously, there are those things that some of the ulama that have taken the position that if the person can somewhat do additional actions outside the normal acts of salat, then the salat is invalid. So the person wants to move forward and make too many steps, they need a person's salat to be invalid. So they mention here concern is not anything that of the masalih of the salat, that are things that of the benefit of the salat, and they are done for that purpose. So if it means additional movements, then the person's salat is valid. The person's salat is valid, and those acts are not considered to be makruh, disliked, as they are done for a reason relating to the salah. Then also from this issue, the person also by this, they said that not to do things that have no relation with the salat, action have no relation to the salat, then a person should avoid those acts. So things that have no relation with the salat, are of no benefit that relates to the salat, then those things the person should avoid. Those things should be avoided. Then also they mention regarding concerning of the hadith, it shows regarding concern that Islam attends to regarding looking at and having masalih of the people in relation to their acts of ibadah. So regarding concerning because of the intense heat of the sun, then the people would pray on something and not directly on the floor. So it showed that regarding concerning that, not taking these things into consideration, taking these things that will make it easier for the worshipper in carrying out that act of ibadah and not put unnecessary difficulty on the worshipper. So it showed that Islam and the Sharia, even acts of ibadah, that it allows that things can be done that will be a benefit for the person in him or her carrying out his act of ibadah in a way that it becomes difficult upon the worshipper. So that's concerning of those benefits that can be taken from that particular act. So again, in line with the general discussion regarding that a person praying, carrying out acts of salah and prostrating and on things. Aywa.
قال المؤلف رحمه الله, chapter 19, to offer as-salah with the shoes on. Hadith number 254, narrated by Abu Musallama Sa'id ibn Yazid Al-Azdi. Naam, said,
They mentioned isnad there.
Just in the English, not in Arabic.
Okay.
Yazid al-Azdi said, I asked Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu whether the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam had ever offered a salah with his shoes on. He replied, yes.
So this concern is hadith that is mentioned regarding concern as the title mentioned concern that the heading of the ayat concern as salat fil ni'al. So it mentions of those matters that are discussed between the ulama that regarding as-salat, the person performing salat fil ni'al. So they mentioned that as for this salat as being discussed, as we discussed, that the ulama mentioned that this would include whether salat is a compulsory salat or a nafila salat. So this salat will include both compulsory and the voluntary salat. Regarding the person praying in there, mentioned ni'al, meaning concerning that ni'al, they mention as being shoes, or the person praying is sandals. So the person praying in is sandals or shoe. Is this something which is allowed? So they mention it from the hadith as based upon what was asked of on this matter. So they mentioned regarding concerning and for the question that was posed, that Anas bin Malik, so the one who was the question was posed to was Anas bin Malik, regarding concerning the Prophet ﷺ, did he pray fi na'alayn? Did he pray in na'alayhi? Did he pray in both of his in his sandals? So he mentioned na'am. So it shows regarding that one, that a question being posed to a person of ilm regarding certain matters that relates to the Sharia, and regarding that, is this something which is permissible or allowed regarding this particular act. So the person asks regarding wanting to know regarding the permissibility or impermissibility of a person praying in their shoe. So the person, Anas, who been asked, called Nam. So they mention that responding to a question to an alim or mufti, responding to a question by just saying Nam. So the person, and that becomes an answer. That becomes the answer by the person just saying Nam, yes. then that shows the permissibility of this act, and that shows the permissibility of this particular thing that is being asked. Or if the person were to say no, then it shows that something is impermissible. It shows that that thing is impermissible. And most of the person asking regarding about what the Prophet Islam did. So he's asking more regarding what the Prophet Islam did. So it shows that the basis regarding what is said to be halal, what is said to be haram, what represents Islam, then it goes back to the Prophet Islam. So regarding to the person knowing exactly, or to one's best ability, knowing exactly what the Prophet Islam did, then that's the main source that the person used as a reference regarding matters. So he mentioned regarding concerning that of this, it shows regarding of the ulama, they mentioned that Imam Bukhari rahimahullah mentioned this hadith by way of trying to indicate or to discuss regarding the permissibility of praying in one shoe. The permissibility of praying in one's shoe. So they mentioned that from the hadith it showed the permissibility of this, that is something which is allowed regarding the person praying in one shoes. They discussed regarding that a few matters regarding praying in one shoe. That of those matters, that one that they put as a condition of the person praying in their shoe, that one, it is something which is the shoe itself, that it is tahir, that is something which is clean. So the person will look to see, especially concerning more so beneath, to see that if there's any things of filth or things of najasa. But if so, the person will look so that of the condition of praying the shoe, that shoe be something which is pure. It is something which is pure. Then they mentioned, so that's concerned, and they mentioned that this act of praying in the shoe, that was we mentioned, that mentioned as salat fi na'alain or fi ni'al, that it would include whether the salat is a compulsory salat or a nafila salat, whether that salat is in the masjid or outside the masjid.
If they're just dirt, not najasa, but just dirt, is that?
And said if it's just dirt, then it's allowed. Now, if it's dirt, then it is allowed. So the main thing that it becomes impermissible if there's, or the person does remove his shoe, if it is najasa, things of impurity. But if it's just dirt, then, or it is wet, now, then that doesn't disqualify the person or stops the person from praying in his shoe. So of the thing that I mentioned, that we were saying, so so this ruling that it applies to inside the masjid and outside the masjid. So as for outside the masjid, it is clear. That so they then the next matter is inside the masjid. So just that this hadith concerned this matter, the person asked concerning that during that time that the masjid is not as they said that the ulama discussed concerning before we go to the they discussed so they mentioned that the masjid then during that time the Prophet Islam and the Sahaba, that the masjid in most part would be of dirt, or sand. So the masjid per se, it would not be what we have today concerning, so that is discussing concerning a masjid that is of the floorings of dirt, or we say concrete. But if that the masjid, now it is a masjid that we have in common practice today in most part. That's that is or every masjid, but you might find that in most part, and if a person wants to find a masjid and there's carpet inside it, then the person, sort of in that case where the masjid is carpeted, then in that case precedent would be given to the nazafa of the masjid, of not destroying of the carpet over praying in the shoe. So in that case, then a person will give precedent to praying without the shoe because there's carpet. So it said so they mentioned that so the person not to that, so not to with this they discuss also regarding is praying in the shoe sunnah or just mubah. So the hukum regarding praying in the shoe is it something which is mubah, just generally permissible, or is of higher degree which is sunnah, where there's something that is more encouraged to be done. What is the hukum regarding this matter? So the ulama mentioned that's not from the hadith, is something which is mubah, and those who say no, it is a sunnah. That so that's so there's those who say it's a sunnah, that they mention some hadith in Abu Dawood where the Prophet mentioned خالف اليهود فإنهم لا يصلون في نعالهم. Well, as the Prophet mentioned, that says Sheikh Albani and others all hadith to be Sahih. So the Prophet said in Hadith, Khalif al-Yahud, that you should be opposite, contrary to the Yahud, because they do not pray in their shoe. And I mentioned, that they do not pray in their khafaf, which would be like their khuf, their leather socks type of thing. So I mentioned, no, they do not pray in this, so be indifferent from them. So from that, some ulama are concerned from that hadith is encouraging us that the person to pray in their shoe to be different from them. But I mentioned that with this though, if the person do so in those circumstances where the person where it is more suitable to do so. So the person find that the masjid it is carpeted, then it is more suitable for the person to pray without a shoe. And also they mentioned that you'll find that or what can be said so in the masjid which has carpet that has to be maintained, then the person should not per se just walk and destroy that carpet in their shoe to say that we're trying to follow the sunnah. So so that to be mentioned. Then also they mentioned that also it says not that you will find today as a practice that the masajid we'll find that they are carpeted, that you find that the ulama and just an ijma sukuti between the Muslim, like a tacit approval from the Muslim that praying in the masjid in your shoe is unacceptable. So if a person wants to enter a masjid and pray in their shoe with a carpet, then people would what? Frown upon it and reject, and the people and people that somewhat express their disapproval of this. And also you find that so that's concerned the general practice where become like a part of a practice that when a person enter the masjid, we kind of somewhat automatically just take off our shoe and expect the masjid to be carpeted. So it not become just a norm amongst the Muslim to do so. So and also that if the person was to do so, that people might object and that may create a disagreement and problems, then it's better for the person to leave that matter of praying in the shoe so as to maintain good brotherhood. So also from this, and also you find that if we were to look regarding the practice of the Muslim, that the best amongst of our the ulama of the Sunnah, so those ulama al-Rabbani, al-Amil, that those ulama who act upon the Sunnah, the ulama of the Sunnah who act according to the Sunnah, that of those you have, so that if you were to meet any alim and he enters a masjid, that he also would take off his shoe and pray. I'm not sure if anyone, I've met an alim who entered a masjid of carpet and decided that he's going to walk inside a masjid in his shoe. Have anyone? Nam?
I don't think we've met an alim before.
Allah Mustaan. We have so we can say was that a discussion? So said, you deem to be an alim.
Yeah, this is something else. This is a different.
It's a different thing.
It's a different discussion.
It's a different discussion. But now said because of the question that was posed, that's why he came with that response. Now, regarding to asking, have we ever seen an alim or even known of an alim? Now, regarding concern a case where a particular alim, one that was standing, that have entered a masjid and still insists he's going to pray in his shoe and even encourage the people to do this. Now,
A sheikh, but maybe a sheikh, but not. I don't
so
know.
you go back to the same thing that he said. You're objecting to me. Go back to his thing. You said
He's a sheikh, but is he
then a sheikh may go against it. You mean that sheikh? You mean a sheikh who went against?
No. In saying that a sheikh that prays in his, I see him praying in his shoes.
Yes, in the masjid, carpeted, encouraging the people.
Yeah.
You've seen that?
Of course.
In this country?
No, not in this country. But he's asking me if I've seen it.
Oh, so you have seen it. That's a decent carpet, or that's some little.
Yeah. Like our carpet.
Huh?
Like this.
Okay, yeah. So okay. I'm saying, of certain things you might find that of the thing that he said mashayikh, something you might find that said of mashayikh due to their environment. Due to certain environment, you might find that they encourage regarding applying the sunnah, and sometimes you might find them said, and they said no, that there's a hadith regarding that matter. So regardless, we're going to do it. And sometimes I find that even Sheikh Alim may be going against the majority of the Muslim. You understand? So you'll be the odd, if you want to use the word, you'll be the odd one amongst the Muslim, even amongst the ulama. So sometimes I find an alim that may do something that he's like the odd one in what he's doing. Now, we find and the matter is somewhat well known and established. Then for that odd alim, then in that case, you understand, be mindful of copying what he's doing. Because he's odd. And he's going against the majority of the ulama. And also it may be his environment. We find that an alim based upon his biyah, based upon his environment. Where his environment that you find that can be a bit more different, maybe more rural. So they kind of somewhat have a more, and that environment said they're more away from the general people. They're not per se. So their mentality sometimes, sometimes that impacts on their mentality. And yes, he said no, from certain parts you find an alim, or what people say alim fulan or sheikh fulan. They have made people have come and said, but that environment, those practice doesn't settle well in anywhere else in the dunya.
No.
That practice that they may have does not settle well in any place in the dunya. So I said sometimes yes, when a person to still weigh things out. Not to be answered. And also for the person said, if you're in that environment, and becomes a practice, mashi, because it's accepted in that environment. But when you take it outside that environment, it may not be that accepted. And also it's not to, and also a person regarding the talib, you understand? Because my shaykh did it, I just want to show that I'm indifferent from everyone else. Then that's not the way you should have that approach also. When you go back to, so a person may study in place fulana. And he has come back to his place of origins. You understand? That is, you understand, the things that are clear is the thing that you bring to the people. That is, and as palatable and accepted. And for those things that may be odd, you come from wherever, more rural district, place, and you come to London and you're going to walk in a masjid in your shoe and the carpet, you understand, the people are going to object. And that may block the people accepting you as a person of ilm because they see why you want to be indifferent from us.
Makes sense.
You understand? So the person will take those things. In that environment that you came from and said a practice is done, mashi. But that says no, is applied. If you want to apply it, then apply it in the streets, in your home, in your house, or praying in the shoe. Now, you might find that same person who may want to do it in the masjid, he's not going to do it in his house. You understand? So it's no, so the person has to like look to yourself. You understand? If you see it applied appropriate to do it in a masjid, then in your house, mashi. Should be even more appropriate. So I said so in applying certain of the sunnah, maybe a sunnah, but also is how one apply that sunnah in a way which is balance. Way which is balance. Now, regarding concerning how you may be looked upon by the people, and how the people accept your person, especially a person of ilm. We're not always that you're going against the people in a matter which is not of the usul of the deen. It's not a funny thing that will make wala, I'm doing it, not doing it, make wala wal bara. The person not doing it because of circumstance. And the person not outright against it. The person say when you're outdoors, at work, in your home, out there in the fields, then, alhamdulillah, pray in your shoe. So that putting things in the proper order. So that's concerning those matters. So everything I mentioned said now of those things the person to take into consideration regarding masalih wal mafasid. So for a person in certain things that to take into consideration regarding masalih and the mafasid, especially in matters that are not, especially in matters that are not of the usul of the deen. So that's concerning that matter.
قال المؤلف رحمه الله, chapter 20, to offer as-salah wearing khuf, leather socks. Hadith number 255, narrated by Ibrahim. Hammam ibn al-Harith said, I saw Jarir ibn Abdullah radiallahu anhu passing urine, and then he performed ablution and passed his wet hands over his khufs, stood up and offered the salah. He was asked about it. He replied that he had seen the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam doing the same. They approved of this narration, as Jarir was one of those who embraced Islam very late.
As I mentioned regarding of those matters regarding of those things, the person that their permissibility or allowance that one is allowed regarding a salat, that one can pray in a shoe or of that nature, that I mentioned regarding a salat fi khafaf. So the person praying in those things, which is, we said that a khuf, so a leather type of socks, that a person praying in this matter. So I said ordinarily asl, that a person is salat, so that a person pray barefoot, then that's what is the common practice. But then they show that the person is allowed to pray in these type of things. The person is allowed to pray in some form of shoe. Then they mentioned regarding concerning the hadith of Jarir ibn Abdullah anhu, that mentioned annahu bala thumma tawadda, that the Prophet that urinated and then made al-wudu, then masala khufayhi, then he wiped over his socks. Thumma qam fasalla, then he got up and he prayed. Then it was asked regarding the matter, faqala ra'ayt Rasul alayhi salam sana mithla hada. So it mentioned regarding concerning that this was something that Jarir ibn Abdullah, that he did this act. So he mentioned, so he urinated, then performed al-wudu, then after in performing of wudu, then he wiped over his khuffayn. So he wiped over his khuffayn, that with his his leather socks. Thumma qam, then he stood up and then he prayed. So they mentioned that as for the sequence of these actions, so of those who observed or what he was doing, and they kind of somewhat asked regarding what he had done, regarding more so wiping over his socks, and not more so of praying in the khuf. So the more concerned the hadith here, that of Jarir ibn Abdullah, that the hadith of those hadith, that discussion regarding of those hadith that are used regarding the permissibility of a person, they say masala khufayn, the person wiping over his socks. But also of those things that it mentioned, thumma qam fasalla, that after wiping over his socks, then his leather socks, then he got up and he prayed, meaning that he prayed in his leather socks. So it showed a sequence of those actions are all something he held to be valid practices. And then when he was asked regarding the matter, then he referenced by the action to the Prophet ﷺ that he mentioned, Sana misla hada. The Prophet ﷺ, he did as I did. He did as I did. So it shows regarding concerning the permissibility of these things, the shahid from the hadith, or the main point from the hadith that mentioned that he prayed in his leather side with his statement reply, ثُمَّ قَامْ فَصَلَّى, that he stood, or mentioned فَمَسَأَلَ خُفَيْ, that he wiped over his leather socks, then qam, and he prayed. So as we had discussed before regarding the matter, regarding, I think recently against the matter, like among some of the al-mashaykh, kind of somewhat a discussion that one discussing regarding the permissibility. So from this discussion, the permissibility of wiping over the normal socks that we have today, or call them the nylon socks, not the normal socks. Is it something which is permissible or not? So one sheikh kind of somewhat, I didn't listen to his clip fully, but one of the sheikh from that is known, that opened a discussion regarding, is it allowed, it seems, and you have back and forth regarding the permissibility of the person wiping and praying over, is wiping and then pray over the normal socks. Is this something permissible? So you have that instead, the cotton socks, is this permissible? So you have said that, so it stemmed from the issue regarding concerning that, I think we have discussed before, that regarding concerning that, ahadith that are in we have sufficient ahadith regarding the permissibility of a person wiping over his khuf, which his khuf is taken to be leather socks. Nam. So the thing that was the practice was as then prevalent then. Now today we still wear khuf. Nam, but it's more the odd thing that we wear. So the more prevalent of what we wear is the cotton socks. That is it now? Is it allowed for a person to wipe over this? So you find that majority of the ulama are those of the ulama who say that it is permissible. Then you have a discussion on that, but even though the ahadith that were jawrab, what they said, cotton socks, those ahadith that mention khuf and also add in some of the narration an addition regarding jawrab, which is cotton socks. You have some lengthy discussion regarding the authenticity of those hadiths. Now, so the hadith I mentioned about wiping over the cotton socks or socks, there's a lengthy discussion on that matter. Now, regarding are those hadith really actually sahih or not? Now, of those of the ulama of hadith or all the hadith that they are authentic based upon all of them being combined together, and those all that's not the case. That direct hadith regarding praying over the cotton socks, that those hadith that they are weak, and them all of those narration of weakness, them being combined together, do they give strength? They said also that's not the case. We should go back to principle in hadith regarding that discussion, but that's the next discussion. But also we have a discussion regarding those matters. So those who say it is permissible, they said qiyas. But qiyas, they mentioned if you're going to use qiyas also, that the leather socks, because they are more thicker. So we have the cotton socks, those ones that are very thin, and we have those ones that are thick. So the thin ones are the ones that you can easily see through them. So you have those who say, if you're going to say qiyas, then you have to use qiyas where if the leather socks, it will be something which is thick, because not the ones that are thin. And those who mentioned that anything that is worn over the feet then becomes allowed, whether it is thin or thick. With me? So you have that discussion between the ulama. You have the discussion, so you still have a group who mention that the thin socks that you can see through them, no. The thick ones, yes. And the second view, another view that anything that is a socks is allowed, whether thin or thick. Sheikh, tafaddal, or the time of change.
There you are. So 7:30.
Is 7:30 there? Okay.
7:45.
Okay. Where are we at?
Second.
Hey, so you have the discussion. So said that. So you have that discussion. Said again resurface that between some of the mashayikh or talabat al-ilm. But to say that, the shahid from the hadith regarding the permissibility for a person when praying that he can pray in either some form of shoe, whether by way of sandals, or by way of slippers, or by way of sneakers, or by way of any type of shoes. And that rule applies to male and female. It applies to both male and female. So the discussion regarding the hadith of Jarir, that they discussed concerning the hadith regarding, that mentions that Jarir ibn Abdullah, that they accept Islam later on because they discussed the ayat of al-wudu, which is in ayat al-Ma'idah, that some of the ulama are going to somewhat dismiss regarding concerning wiping over the socks, that I mentioned that ayat of wudu, that it invalidate that practice or nullify that practice. So it was allowed initially for a person to wipe over his socks, but when the ayah of Ma'idah was revealed, then it nullifies this. It removed that ruling of the person being allowed to wipe over his khuf then or socks. But they said the hadith of Jarir, where hadith of Jarir, he accepted Islam after the revealing of the verse of Ma'idah, of the ayat of wudu. So it shows that him saying that, doing this act of making wudu, then wiping over his socks and praying, and then kind of attributing this act to the Prophet of Islam, it shows that it is something which is permissible, and also because he accepted Islam later on, then it shows that it shows that it is not something which is abrogated and still stand. and it's still a standard of practice that is allowed. So you have that discussion. So you have those discussions that can be taken from this hadith. The overall hadith, it shows regarding that the person allowance for one to pray in different type of footwear, whatever they may be, whatever type of footwear that they may be, we said with the condition that is something which is clean. It is something of no najasa. So that inshallah ta'ala, I will go to the next hadith, because also from this matter you show regarding concern that you know that from this hadith it shows regarding that an-nasikh wal-mansukh. So regarding also of, they mentioned this issue regarding matter relating to Jarir ibn Abdullah when he accepted Islam and the practice and thing that he was doing. So you might find that at times things may seem contradicting, but that's not the case. And there are cases, legitimate cases, where you have the bab of nasikh wal mansukh, where things are abrogated. So you have cases where things initially used to be done in the early days or some time in Islam, then later on it was removed, which is called an-nasikh wal-mansukh. So something was allowed, but then a ruling that came after. So initially something was allowed, then later on that ruling was removed, abrogated. So cases of those does occur, but it's known when those things apply. When those things apply regarding what abrogate what is known. So you find that ulama have written books just on those topics regarding concerning an-nasikh wal-mansukh by way of the Quran, and also nasikh wal-mansukh by way of al-hadith. You have books both for the Quran, related to Quran in specific, and books also that relates to hadith on this particular topic. So from overall the hadith that is being discussed regarding concerning the permissibility regarding wiping over the socks, or let's say the khuf. Also it shows that with Jarir ibn Abdullah, shown regarding that Jarir ibn Abdullah, that he was very keen regarding following of the sunnah. So of those things, wudu, wiping over the socks, and praying in his khuf. So all of those things so it shows regarding concern that the permissibility of all these things, and also the person that he tried to put emphasis in following of the sunnah. And also it shows regarding the person that in matters take the final ruling that have been transmitted on that act. If they seem to contradict, if there seems to be contradiction, so the final ruling would take precedent over the previous ruling, the previous ruling, if there's any contradiction, if there's any form of contradictions. As nasikh wal-mansukh, at times it will be something which is by way of nas, where the text will clarify that this thing has been abrogated by what come last. So at times it will specify that this act was allowed, but then it was removed. So that's concerning this particular hadith. Aywa.
Just a question. What do you say to a person who has the understanding that wiping over the socks was for a specific time, due to maybe in the time of the Prophet there was a lack of water, so they wipe, and whereas today, because we have water by abundance, we have lots of water, then a person should always just wash their feet instead of wiping their socks.
Now, the regarding concern, the ahkam sharia is not that is not the person looking at thing in using our own rationale and trying to rationalize things, and saying and trying to, because then we're thinking in our mind that they had lack of water. And because in our time we have more abundance of access to water, why we should do or not do something, that the person can somewhat trying to rationalize things. So concerning Islamic law, then we follow things as it is given. We follow things as it is given. So you find the hadith of Jarir, it can somewhat also trying to remove that type of, we might rationalize things regarding the Sharia. Not to try to put our own understanding in things, but put understanding as it is outlined in the Sharia. Because everything can rationalize things, and then with each person will sometimes come to a different conclusion. Or you might see this thing. So with these things, with cases like these, what it gives us regarding concern to the permissibility of those things, if the person that because of he said wiping over the socks, lack of water. Consider the ruling of wiping on the socks, it has its own set of rules that goes with it. It's not necessarily about lack of water. You understand? So it's about ease. We'll find that for a person to make a mess over the socks, that you have previously completed wudu. And they also give you time. So it's not about, you understand, access to water. It gives you a time for the person. It was just based upon lack of water. It to be an open thing. You wash your feet as long as you have that socks on for 5, 10 days, a year, then wipe over your socks. So if it's about rationalizing things, then it's an open field. But the Sharia regarding mess, it has its own set of rules when it is allowed and when it is not allowed. So it's not about lack of water. The ulama of life is not about lack of water, it's more so about ease with the rules, giving ease to the Muslim on this matter. But with some type of guidelines. With that, inshallah ta'ala, we'll end.
One more.
We'll end, okay.
Go on. Fadl.
Okay, so we end the normal lesson.
You know the issue of the hoofs or like socks below the ankle or above the ankle. Is that from the ulama or like is that an hadith or that specify this?
Hey, so regarding concerning that, that the socks, that was said is not regarding concerning wiping over the socks, that they mentioned regarding the khuf, that what is understood regarding khuf then, regarding hadith about wiping, that they normally, that they cover, they go above the ankle. Now, so if it says no, so you look at what was the practice then, and what was understood then, regarding as to, what is khuf is something which is above the ankle. Now, so they put a criteria that the person that it should be. So a case now, the socks that is worn sometimes, some of the socks, that they're below the ankle. I'm saying, I've often said majority may be inclined, or the ulama may inclined that of the condition it has to be, it covers the ankle. So the ankle is covered, meaning it goes above the ankle. That as for some of the ulama, that they have taken a position that, they say, look at those that is a rukhsa, a form of ease. So anything that is referred to as socks, you understand? So it's not a criteria that the socks, if the socks have some holes in it, and you can see that, then you still can wipe over it. So they said it's not as for it below the ankle, it's not a criteria, because what we have, that thing that is still called a socks, even though it's below the ankle. So they said the rule is still applied to them, but said majority see different. I said a safer path, ihtiyat, that a person go the one that says above the ankle, because that was what the understanding then. Aywa.
It's either the part of praying and making certain movements. So if a person is doing salah and they have voices in their head and all,
Sorry?
say someone's doing salah and they hear voices that
Hey.
distracts them for salah, and they say they spit to the left 3 times.
Hey.
That movement there, does that invalidate
No. So said in those cases the person might have some type of distractions. Voice and they wish now to do this act of do the act of seek refuge and then spit to that, because that action the Prophet have allowed that allowed us to do that. It becomes a part of the salat. So it becomes a part of the salat. So the person he has been given allowance to do so. So that becomes now a part of the acts of salat. Is done if there is a need, but it is now become part of the framework of the act of salah. Clear? So it's not considered to be an extra act. It's extra because the circle, but it is within those extra acts that we have been given allowance that you can do it.
Just one more. He's going to call that down. So, nowadays, in present times, you have, for example, people wear socks, right? And they come to masajid, and sometimes their socks are very dirty, or have
It has an odor.
Have an odor, for example, or odor. Would it if that person comes and it's better that they keep their shoes on to pray than take off their shoes to pray, or is it better for them to just remove it all, but even in that case their feet might smell and then it causes more harm? So my question is how these, what would a person specifically do in that case? They know their feet smell, they know.
نمزل كيس أو تكال قال هذا نصحته
No.
الشيخ قال هذا
1 minute.
after that.
Tell you. You can stop the sound there.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
No, he's going to answer now. So because
Yeah, I understand the question.
in specific masajid as well, just to add into the question, is that a person is not allowed to enter into the wudu area with their sock. So you have to remove your sock in specific. I've been to specific masjid in England, and they don't allow socks to enter into their wudu area. So you can't wipe over.
Okay, so the question that I understand, one, I for myself do not like questions, type. Second, that if any questions are entertained is related to the topic we're discussing, type. So as for what is being put forward regarding concern that a person might know, that if the person might have a smelly feet or socks, and they enter the masjid, that should they keep their socks on, knowing that they may have a foul smell, odor, or should they pray in their shoe? That's answer. So I said that if the place is carpeted, I said one that a Muslim regarding concerning coming to the masjid, of those things that ensure that all the is clothing, for said from top to bottom, is in suitable state. So the person in coming to the masjid, so coming to the masjid, so just the Prophet Islam mentioned regarding concern that if a person have ate from these type of plants, of onions and the likes, they are not to come to the masjid. So if there's anything that has anything of bad odor that would disrupt the people, and if the person know of this by way of his clothing, his socks, then the person is somewhat either the person not to wear those things coming to the masjid. And the person that his feet and the likes, then if his socks ever smell, take it off and just go and wash your feet. Yeah, but says to the person, so for the person to pray in his shoe in the we call it on the carpet, then even next problem. Yeah, understand? So Aim said that they just bring more. He's compounding the problem. So it's the ideal thing for that person that if they know they have their feet, their socks, then take it off. And if they believe their feet may still have a smell, then go and wash it. So they say most of the masajid in the wudu section you have soap. No. Hey, so the person has to wash the feet, put some soap and wash the feet. You understand? So instead, because if the person was to pray, then one, the person beside you or the person around you, then they're going to somewhat have, you understand, ill feelings towards you and raise suspicion. You understand? They can see you as a person who are not very clean person, or the person, you understand? So the person can someone to move those type of tuhma any type of, you understand, bad perception of him from others, and if you know there's certain things there, then try to remove it. So instead the person with the feet or the clothes, so the person that his clothing may not be, then take in his bag something where he can change, or just put over. But say if the feet or the socks, then take it off and wash the feet. But to pray, to compound it, to pray in the shoe, because of the socks smells, then that's the person that's, said that's trouble upon trouble. That's just another set of troubles. Now, those said overall that a person coming to the masjid can somewhat, ensure that the clothing that a person going to wear in the masjid, that it is suitable to be worn. It's something which is suitable to be worn. So that inshallah, you had something?
I have to take off my socks if I go to a masjid. They say it's forbidden to enter into this area.
If they have do they have someone someone there like monitoring you who comes in and do this?
But the masjid might be upon that.
And either they have this view, but if they even though the masjid will be, we said the masjid will be those people who maybe the imam and the people who run the masjid have their view, but they cannot impose their view on everyone by forcing everyone to fall into to take on their putting things in place to stop people from applying a view which is legitimate and valid.
No, they use the obviously they say like when people go to the wudu area, especially in some specific masjid that are always washing, there's a lot of water, people's socks get wet, and they bring the socks. They talk about preserving the carpet, so they say don't bring your socks into the wudu area, get them wet, and then walk on the carpet. Do you understand?
Okay.
That's the masjid. That's what they stand for. That's why they say take off your socks, wash your feet, and then
Put back your socks on.
Yeah, because you're yeah.
Is either the masjid then, if they have this view and they want this, then put things in place. Then if the masjid, then it means that they have to put certain things in place. Either if you don't want the person to, that comes in the wudu area, it doesn't the person, because you necessarily mean instead the person that if you have your socks on, it's gonna get wet. So if you may have the right type of mats that are in place, so because if the masjid want this, then it means that they have to put things in place, put appropriate mats, where if the person still want to wear his socks, you understand that the mat will be high enough. You understand? So it's for them to put the appropriate thing, not to impose upon the people that this, and you're not taking any actions also. Other than just have a police, someone there to police the people. You understand? So it's for the masjid to, if they're going to make this the rule for them, you understand? Then it's for them to put things in place other than just barring the people from doing something which is a legitimate practice. Obilai.